Online students, please check your audio and video settings, please. Both online and offline students, please check your audio and video settings, please. Fine. Am I audible, guys? Okay. Yeah. Today onwards, we are going to discuss Spring Boot MVC. MVC is the module name. If it is learned in Spring style, Spring MVC. If it is learned in Spring Boot style, it is Spring Boot MVC. Sir, we have a web module also, same. Web MVC module, same. Web module, MVC module, Web MVC module, all are same. If this module is used in Spring style, Spring MVC, Spring Boot style, Spring Boot. But anyhow, latest is Spring Boot only. And I already said, only to enter into Spring Boot, we learn Spring. But every module, every application, we are going to develop in what style? Spring Boot style only. Because Spring is almost not outdated, but not directly used, indirectly used. It's like JDBC. JDBC is not outdated, but it is not directly used much. It is indirectly used a lot. Fine. Most important, very, very useful. Okay, to develop the websites in Spring and Spring Boot framework, this module is given. So generally, world is full of websites, na? So if you want to develop such websites in Spring, we have to think about working with this module. One interview question is there. Can you explain Spring MVC flow or Spring Boot MVC flow? If you give confident and perfect answer for this question, no other questions in this module. If you not confident while giving answer for this question or while drawing diagram of explanation, he will ask 10 questions minimum in this module. So in one question, they decide whether you are good or bad in Spring MVC. To confirm you are bad, you will ask multiple questions. To confirm it's good, okay, no need of asking much question. The way you explain MVC tells whether you are good or bad in MVC. That's a standard question. Without asking that question, your interview will not be complete. But directly we don't go for learning, First we prepare background. What is this need of module? What is the problem with the existing environment? Before arrival of these frameworks, we used to work with the Servlet JSP to develop the websites. In advanced Java, you might have learned them also, right? Yeah, when they are there, why should I learn this? So definitely we have to learn from 0% or not there. You know that I never directly get into the subject. I prepare a lot of background. Okay, if and buts. We will discuss a lot of if and buts, right? Lot of history related thing. So Spring MVC is good to develop web application. Spring Boot MVC is good to develop web application. But what was there before arrival of this? Why they are bad? Okay, why we are learning all this stuff? So let me start my discussion from 0%. Let's get into the old discussion. How many ways are there to develop web applications in Java? How many architectures are there? 2 architectures are there. I don't know whether you heard or not. Model 1, Model 2. Model 1 architecture, Model 2 architecture. Here apply English meaning, not the Java meaning model. Model means data. No. Just apply English meaning. Model 1, type 1, type 2 kind of. Style 1, style 2. Approach 1, approach 2. Model 2 architecture is also called as MVC architecture. MVC means Model View Controller. Right, boss? Let's concentrate on Model 1 architecture. What happens in Model 1 architecture? What happens in Model 1 architecture? The main logic of the web application will be written either using JSP or using servlet. That means if servlet is used as main component, JSP will not be used. If JSPs are used as main component, servlet will not be used. Are you getting my point there, guys? Come on. Either servlet or JSP. Helper components will be there. HTML, CSS, all these helper components will be there. And moreover, in the main components, we mix up multiple logics. In servlet itself, JDBC code. In servlet itself, pw.println presentation logic. In servlet itself, business logic. Come on, guys. Problem number 1, if servlets are used as main component, JSP will not be used. Reverse, also true. And multiple logics will be mixed up in main component. While learning servlet, did you write your business logic separately? Persistence logic separately? Everything you kept in what? Service method? If you are a mature developer in do get do post methods, right? If you are a mature developer, you would have kept some logics in do get do post method, right, boss? We are mixing up multiple logics or not? Is there any clean separation between logics, guys? No clean separation between logics. The modification done in one logic may affect other logics because all are mixed up, because all are interconnected. Come on, guys. Because all are mixed up and all are interrelated. What do you say, my dear? I want reply. Yeah, see, guys. Here, all logics will be placed either in servlet component or JSP. In this model of application development, if servlet components are used as main component, then JSP components will not be used, and vice versa. Every main web component like servlet JSP component contains mix of multiple logic. So we can say there is no clean separation between logics. This model 1 architecture is suitable only for what? Small scale web applications development, like nareshit.com, hyderabad.com, this kind of story. Comfortable, guys? Understanding my statement, my dear? Come on. Yeah. Model 2, observe. Here, multiple logics of web application will be developed by using multiple technologies by placing them in what? Multiple layer. Layer means logical partition, right? Model 1 architecture is like bachelor room. I already said this statement. Everything single place, no clarity, no separation between the items, right, boss? But MVC architecture is a layered application. It's like a 3 BHK flat, 4 BHK flat, 5 BHK flat, na boss? It's definitely 4 BHK flat, 5 BHK flat or not, guys? Say something, my dear. I want reply. Got the clarity, boss? Super. Here, the multiple logics of web application will be developed using multiple technologies by placing them in what? Multiple layers. By simply literally placing them in what? Multiple layers. Understanding my statement, guys? Come on. Since multiple layers are there, we can say there is clean separation between logic, guys. There is clean separation between logic. M for model layer contains what? Business logic plus persistence logic. Service class plus DAO class. Basically represents data, guys. Model means data. V for view. Presentation logic, nothing but UI logic. Model layer is like accounts officer, always busy calculation, storing, maintaining the records, getting the records, this kind of thing. View layer is what? Presentation logic. Is like a beautician. Takes the raw data, applies the styles and makes it as what? Beautiful looking data. Right, guys? Okay. That's why here HTML, JavaScript, CSS, all this comes into picture, boss. Okay. C for controller. When these many people are doing these many operations, there should be one supervisor taking the request, passing the request. There must be one or other supervisor or not, guys? Must and should, there should be one supervisor or not, guys? Contains monitoring logic, nothing but what? Tracing activities. Nothing but tracing activities. Comfortable, guys? Got the point, my dear? I want reply. M for model layer, V for view layer, C for controller layer. An enterprise application can be a complex web application or distributed application or combination of both. Combination of both. Flipkart with credit card payment, enterprise application. Flipkart with UPA payment. Different logics will be placed in different layers and we keep them participating in what? Communication. That's the beauty of layered application or not, boss? Super. Prefer this architecture to develop medium scale and large scale projects. Okay. E-commerce sites, university application, banking application, those things will be preferred using what? MVC architecture or not, guys? Anything small, model one architecture. Anything medium or large scale. And you know one thing, Java is not popular for small scale website. For that one, PHP, .NET, JavaScript is there. People enjoys that. So that means in Java, no one uses model one architecture. Maybe except while learning technologies like Servlet JSP. Okay, at that time, since you don't know much about what these architectures and other thing, at that time you might have kept there only JDBC code, there only pw.println, there only business logic. Come on, guys. But in real world, no one prefers Java to develop small website. Java means think big and apply for big, right? So minimum medium scale websites will be developed in Java. So in Java, model one architecture is popular, MVC architecture is popular. Anything small, we don't think about Java. But the problem with the compared to application side, Java settings will be more, right? That's why for small applications, we don't think about Java, guys. Suitable technology for model layer to develop business logic and persistence logic, guys. Java classes we can use for business logic. Same Java classes I can take with JDBC code. One Java class for service class, one Java class for DAO class. Spring Beans. I don't want to create objects manually. I don't want to assign one object with another object manually. That's why in the place of normal Java classes, I can manage the story with the Spring Beans. Spring Bean as a service class, Spring Bean as a DAO class, right, boss? Spring Beans with ORM. I don't want to write JDBC persistence logic. I want to write Hibernate style persistence logic. EasyAB components, outdated, boss. Spring Beans with the data JPA. And I want to write only service classes. I don't want to write persistence logic manually. Then data JPA comes into picture or not, guys? Spring REST. Okay. If you want to keep business logic and persistence logic within the same project, Spring Beans with the data JPA. No, in a remote project, but you want to use here. Then Spring REST with the data JPA, na boss? Spring REST is distributed application who allows his services to access from remote places. Come on, guys. If you want to keep business logic within the same project, Spring Bean with ORM, Spring Bean with the data JPA. No, remote places you want to allow. Then what? Spring REST with the data JPA. Suitable technology for controller layer. Servlet or Servlet filter. Servlet is mostly recommended. Suitable technologies for view layer. Not one technology. We use combination of technologies here. JSP, HTML, theme leaf, Angular, React.js, and etc. We use together as what? Bunch of JavaScript technologies. As what? Bunch of JavaScript technology. Are you understanding my statement, guys? Come on. Different popular architectures in Java. MVC, monolithic, SOA. SOA means service-oriented architecture. Microservice architecture. Right now, which is hot cake, guys? For web application, MVC. For large-scale projects, microservice architecture. Okay, just try to understand names. In MVC and monolith, what we do? All modules of the project will be combined into single unit. Okay. In microservice architecture, what we do, guys? Different modules as different projects and we integrate them. And what is latest in the market? Microservice architecture. SOAP-based web service is there now, boss? Okay, that is SOA architecture. RESTful web services generally microservice architecture. Generally, we go for what? Microservice architecture. Okay, guys. Now listen carefully. Instead of developing controller component as normal servlet component or filter component, it is recommended to develop as what? Front controller servlet. Servlet component based on front controller DP. DP means design pattern. DP means what? Design pattern. So now we need, okay, right now, all MVC projects, whatever you say in Java, maybe Servlet JSP, maybe Struts based, maybe Spring MVC based, Spring Boot MVC based, JSF based, all these are popular wordings, guys. They are running with which architecture? MVC with front control. MVC with front controller. Listen carefully. I have 10 modules. I'll take 10 service classes. Service classes are Java classes. Do you think it can take HTTP request? No. Java classes can take HTTP request or no. We need servlets. For 10 module, if we take 10 servlets as controller classes, how many servlets we need to develop? 10. Instead of that, I will develop controller classes also as Java classes. Normal classes only. Having ability to process the request or delegate the request to service class. Come on. But if controller class is a Java class, do you think it can take request from browser? No. Only servlet JSP web components only can take the request from the browser. Controller class, what I am taking here? Java class. Do you think it can take request from browser, guys? Please be active. Do you think it can take request from browser, guys? No. That's what we do, in front of multiple controller classes, which are Java classes and which are internally linked with the service classes. Service classes are internally linked with the repositories, nothing but DAO classes. We keep one front controller servlet. What is that? Dispatcher servlet. What is that, guys? Single front controller servlet. In Spring MVC, name is what? Dispatcher servlet, ready-made one. Ready-made means, do I need to develop it? No. What it will do? Its URL pattern is slash. Slash means what? Takes all the request. Front controller servlet is a special web component of web application that acts as entry and exit point for all the requests or multiple requests. Entry and exit point for what? Either all the requests or for what? Multiple requests. Either for all the requests or for what? Multiple requests. Convinced, my dear? Got the point, my dear? I want reply, boss. It is like front office executive that is there in office. It traps everyone entries, traps everyone exit. Otherwise, if not like front office executive, it's like a security guard. Security guard that is there in front of your main office. Come on, guys. He traps everyone entry. He traps everyone exit. Otherwise, security guard that is there outside the supermarket. While entering, he will check your bags and everything. While exiting, he will check whether you have taken bill or not. Items are there in the bag according to bill or not. Come on, guys. Are you getting my point there? Are you understanding my statement? Front controller is a special servlet or JSP component of web application, generally servlet, that acts as entry and exit point for all the requests and responses. It traps the request, applies the common system services, delegates the request to handler or controller classes. Okay, gathers the result, okay, and delivers the results to what? Client, nothing but browser. So it is like a supervisor, won't do anything but monitors everything or not. It will not do anything on its own, but it will monitor multiple things or not, guys. What is the work of supervisor, guys? Supervisor work is working. No. His work is monitoring others' work. His work is supervising others' work. Right, boss? Okay. Supervisor means, na, he won't work. But under him, 10 members team will be there. He will make sure that all 10 members are working smoothly. Instead of developing controller component as normal servlet component or filter component, it is recommended to develop it as what? Front controller servlet. All MVC projects of current trend are MVC with what? Front controller. MVC is not a design pattern. It's an architecture to develop layered applications in Java. While developing various layers and components in that architecture, we use multiple design patterns as best practices. Generally, in the implementation of MVC architecture-based web application, we can see following design pattern implementation: DAO, service, business delegate, factory, front controller, view helper, composite view, and etc. These are the various design pattern we see, guys. Okay, now listen. Architecture gives end-to-end application development process. In that, while developing different components, different problems will occur. The best solution to solve those different problems is called as what? Design pattern. The best solution that are there to solve these different problems are technically called as what? Design patterns. Are you understanding my statement, guys? Are you understanding my statement? Okay. I did not introduce officially dispatcher servlet, my dear. Okay. I just said one ready-made front controller is there, that is dispatcher servlet. Luckily, in every framework, one ready-made front controller is available. You need not to develop what? Front controller manually. That is what? Dispatcher. I just introduced dispatcher servlet, right? So right now my focus is on what is the difference between architecture and design pattern. Architecture gives end-to-end process to develop the project. Come on, my dear. Architecture gives end-to-end process to develop the project. Car manufacturing architecture, it is tires are required, steering is required, roof is required, this much length allowed, this much, these many seats are allowed, right? Some architecture will be there. While fitting the steering, there are so many problems, and best solution solving that problem is called design pattern. So in the implementation of architecture, we get so many problems in each place, right? The best solution to solve problem of each place is called design pattern. Is called design pattern. Convinced, my dear? Got the point, my dear? I want reply, boss. Yeah, in the implementation of MVC architecture, in different layers, we use different component. In the development, some problems will be there. To solve those problems, we apply some best solution. These best solutions are called as what? Design patterns. Okay. Architecture of the application talks about various components and layers in application development and their interaction among them. While develop each component or layer of architecture, we follow bunch of rules as best practices or design pattern to solve the recurring problems. MVC is the layered architecture to develop web application. In that, we use front controller, application controller design pattern. In what layer? Controller layer. View helper, composite view design pattern in what layer? View layer. I hope you understood my statement, guys. Okay. Are bus manufacturing, so many components should be assembled together by following a process, that is architecture. Okay. While fitting the steering, some problems are coming. Seniors have documented this is the best way of fitting the steering. These are the rules to follow. That is called design pattern or not. While selecting the tires, problems are coming. Some seniors documented while choosing the tires for any vehicle. These are the patterns you should remember. Come on, guys. These are the rules you should remember. We followed it. Best solution has come. Can I call it as a design pattern? That means architecture talks about end-to-end process of developing application, right? Understanding my statement? In that process, in every layer, multiple problems will be there. Agree with me, guys? To solve this problem, best solutions are used. These best solutions are called design pattern. Okay, guys. Now I'm officially launching what is front controller. Front controller, listen. A special web component of Java web application that acts as entry and exit point for either all requests or multiple requests of web application is called, what is that? Front controller. It is like security guard in front of office. He will trap every entry, perform security checks. If any common instructions are there to give to enter for the visitors, he will give and says go to that room and this room, delegates this. Okay. After work is completed, again he will trap your exit. Again checks. If any common message is there to leave, again he will leave and he will go ahead. It's like security guard, front office people. Come on. Okay. Sir, what actually front controller will do after trapping request? After trapping request, it will apply common system services. First, listen carefully. Like security, logging, auditing, this kind of thing. Delegates the request to appropriate controller class method. That controller class either directly process the request or takes the support of what? Service and DAO classes to process the request. Come on, guys. Whatever result that comes to again front controller happily sends that result to browser as a response. So don't you think it is acting as entry and exit point for all requests and responses of either for all things or for multiple things? Either for all things or for what? Multiple. Is it not interesting, Rababu? Come on. Super. Listen carefully what is there, guys. A front controller web component, a special web component of web application that acts as entry and exit point for all or multiple HTTP requests and responses is called front controller web component. What web component, guys? Generally, one web application contains only one front controller web component. Front controller is a supervisor, na? If 2, 3 supervisors are there on the team, what happens, guys? Groupism will start or not? Groupism will start or not? Instead of making team working effectively, they will disturb the productivity of the team or not? When I said to do this work, you have not done, but you do the same work when other supervisor given instruction. I will take care of you. Like this, among the supervisor, groupism will start or not, guys? So that's why it's better to have a single supervisor, single front controller for entire web application. We can take either servlet component or servlet filter component or JSP component as front controller component, but servlet component is recommended. Front controller means you should trap the request, delegate the request, apply system services. Lot of Java code. Is it good to write Java code in JSP? So JSP ruled out. Servlet filter. Filter is also extension of servlet only, boss. Okay. Filter is also extension of servlet. Some people prefer servlet, some people prefer what? Filter. But compared to filter, servlet is having more benefit. That's why you prefer working with what? Servlet component as front controller. Servlet component as front controller. Convinced, my dear? Come on. The minimum services that should be applied after trapping request are called what? 1 minute. A front controller web component traps either all requests or multiple requests, applies common system services, performs navigation management, data management, view management, and lastly, sends the response to browser. Lastly, sends the response to browser. Browser is nothing but client. Lastly, sends the response to browser. Comfortable, guys? Understanding my statement, guys? I want reply. Yeah, listen. Front controller traps either all requests or multiple requests. Applies system services. Performs navigation. Array, from where it should go. Okay. Data management. Take care of data for passing data here and there. View management. Which result should be formatted by which JSP? And after trapping request, you should tell where the request should go to, which service class, which controller class, which helper class. Come on. That is navigation management. So when results are generated, you have to think about passing data here and there. Along with the request also inputs will come. You have to think about storing that data somewhere. That is data management. Come on. Once the results are generated, are you going to present the result as a raw results onto the browser? No. By using one or other view component, we have to format the results. Which result should be formatted by which view component? Which result should be formatted by which view component? Is decided by whom, guys? You resolve. Is decided by whom, guys? I want reply. View management. Understood my statement, guys? Got the point, my dear? Got it? Yes. Super, guys. Tell me. A front controller web component traps either all requests or multiple requests, applies common system services, performs navigation management, data management. Or data management is also called model management. When I say here model, data, model management. Perfect, na boss? View management. And lastly, sends the response to browser. System services. The minimum services that should be applied after trapping the request are called system services. Security, logging, auditing. Security means username, password verification kind of. Logging means it keeps track of code flow. Which line executed at what time. Auditing means what? Keeps track of user activity. Sir, what's the difference between code flow and user flow? This class, this method, this line executed, code flow. User logged in. User checked the mails. User forwarded the mail. User deleted the mail. User logged out. This is auditing. Understood my statement, guys? Okay. Everything is written side, Babu. Logging keeps track of code flow. Auditing keeps track of user activities. Handler class, the Java class, where we process the request is called what? Handler. Okay. What is front controller servlet in layman terms, guys? It is a special servlet component of web application having special URL pattern, having the ability to trap and take requests, delegating the request to what? Other components of the application for processing, gathering results from the component and passing the results to view component. Gathering the formatted results from view component and passing them to clients as response. Simple, Rababu. What it will do? Trap the request. Apply the system services. Delegates the request to whom? Appropriate controller class or handler class. Either directly process the request or process the request by talking to service or DAO classes. Okay, from there what? Gathers the result. Gives the results to whom? View component, where results are formatted. So formatted results will be gathered and will be sent to browser as response or not, guys? And will be sent to browser as response or not? I want reply, my dear. I want reply. The minimum services that should be applied after trapping request. Navigation management. Taking the request by trapping request and delegating or passing to, come on guys, passing appropriate URI, URL request to appropriate handler components or classes is called navigation management. In simple, front controller sends write request to write handler class. This handler class is technically called as controller class. Or a front controller means single one. Controller class means multiple. Where request is processed either directly or by taking the support of what? Service and DAO classes. That is next one. Data management, also called as modeling. Along with the request, inputs will come either in the form of form data, taking it and passing to controller class. When controller process the request, either directly or by taking the support of service and DAO classes, some results will be generated now, boss. Definitely some results will be generated or not, guys. Definitely some results will be generated. Are you understanding my statement, guys? Come on. No doubt some results are generated. Agree with me, my dear. Got the point, my dear. I want reply, boss. Definitely some results are generated. Are you understanding my statement, boss? Come on. This result should be kept in scopes, and from the scope, various components can access the data. Keeping the results in different scopes and making them available in what? View component and other component is called as what? Model management or data management. Check it out, guys. Passing data inputs that is coming along with the request to appropriate handler class and passing data, nothing results to appropriate view component from handler class by keeping data in what? Required scope. Generally, request scope or session scope is called as what, guys? Data management or model management. Data management or model management. I hope are you able to visualize, guys? What front controller will do? Trap the request. Applies the system services. Using navigation management logic, it will send the request to appropriate handler class. Yes, na boss? That is navigation management. Okay, handler class either directly process the request or by taking the support of what? Service DAO process the request. Come on, guys. These results will be kept in scope so that they can be made available to what? Other places. Come on. That is data management. Once results are received by front controller, so front controller will decide which JSP, which HTML file should be used to format the results. That is called view manage. Okay, tell me, who decides request should go to which controller class or which handler class? Which logic? Navigation management. How results generated by controller class or inputs coming along with the request will be made available here and there. Data management logic. Come on, guys. How the result, how results generated by controller class will be formatted using different presentation components. View management. Whenever request is tapped, what are the minimum services that are applied on the request automatically? System services. The system services will be applied on the request automatically or not, guys. Front controller simply do four things, guys. Apply the system services. Using navigation management, delegates the request to what? Handler class to handle the request. Whatever results generated, they are kept in scope using data management logic. Come on, guys. Okay, whatever result that are coming will be passed to view component using view management logic. Simply using what logic, guys? View management logic. Convinced, my dear? Got the point, my dear? I want reply, boss. Yeah, note one. System services, data management, view management, navigation management logics will be placed in front controller. That means entire flow of the application from request to response under the controller and monitoring of what? Who is tapping request? Front control. Who is deciding controller class or handler class to execute? Who is gathering result? Who is keeping result in scopes? Who is deciding view component to format the result? Who is gathering formatted results from view component? Who is passing those results to browser as response? Everything is front controller, na? I am a faculty, started the class. Okay, na? When course starts, decided by faculty. How to conduct the class, decided by faculty. What assignment? Faculty. When course end? Faculty. When to take the break in the course? Faculty. Come on, guys. So how courses are designed around faculty, entire Spring MVC is designed around front controller servlet. But in Spring environment, am I going to develop this front controller manually? Am I going to write this navigation management, data management logic manually? No, because it's a ready-made one. What is the ready-made servlet name? Dispatcher servlet. But we develop a lot of helper classes providing inputs to that dispatcher servlet. Okay. Handler class is Java class and also called as controller class. Either can process the received request directly or can take the support of what? Service DAO classes for the same. Taking service DAO classes is what? Good practice. Taking service DAO classes is what? Good practice. Okay, these many times when I'm introducing terminology, sir, explain through diagram now why are introducing terminology. So this is one diagram, guys, where MVC with front controller is explained. What is that? MVC with front controller is explained. Already I have explained layered application in a standalone environment. That knowledge is helping us what is layer and all this stuff. This is layered application in web application using MVC plus front controller patterns. Using what, guys? MVC plus front controller. Simply using what, guys? MVC plus front controller. Convinced, my dear? Got the point, my dear? I want reply, boss. Super. Okay, now listen. Middle box, MVC architecture plus front controller based Java web application. Perfect. This is browser acting as a client. This is database. In web application, what are there? Front controller is there. One or more handler classes are there. One or more view components are there. One or more service classes. One or more DAO classes. DAO what? having persistence logic to talk to. Service class, per business logic. Handler class, delegation logic. View components, presentation logic. Convinced boss, I want reply. Perfect. Browser gives request. That is number one. Come on, boss. Browser gives request. That is number one. As a front controller, it traps and takes the request or not. As a front controller, it will trap and take the request or not. I want reply, boss. And applies the system services. Come on, my dear. Number one, request generated by browser. What is the URL? Lastly, s1.do is there, right? What's the URL pattern of the front controller? Star.do or slash. Slash means take every request. Slash means what? Take every request, boss. Tell me, boss. Using navigation management logic, it will send the request to appropriate handler class. Super. Handler class either directly process the request or delegate the request to service class. I'm assuming it is delegating to service class. Say business logic executed, process the request, some output is generated, some input and some output are all outputs and all outputs we want to save or not, guys. Those that data is given to whom? DAO class. In Spring Data JP, it's a repository. In Spring Data JP, a repository not developed by me, are automatically generated. Yes or no, na boss? Super, guys. Yeah, this will interact with the database software. Inserts the data. If needed, fetches the data, whatever it is. Come on. SQL query execution results comes to DAO. DAO passes those results to service. Service passes to controller class. Controller class keeps in one or other scope or not, guys? Controller class keeps in one or other scope and passes the control to who? Front controller. Front controller uses view management logics and it decides what? Appropriate view component to process the result. There, presentation logic will read results kept in different scopes. Result kept in what? A different scope. Formats the result and formatted result output goes to whom? Front controller. Formatted result output goes to whom? Front controller. That is 14. 15, guys. Front controller sends formatted output to browser as web page content in the form of response. As web page content in the form of what? Response. In the form of what? A response. Convinced, my dear? Got the point, my dear? Okay, this time we'll go by numbers, boss. Whatever theory I said, that is happening or not there. That's why when I'm introducing one by one, keep your breath, keep your breath. I just used dispatcher servlet first time. Someone said that I did not understand dispatcher servlet. I just introduced one word. Right now, you got the clarity, boss? Yeah, this front controller in Spring MVC, Spring Boot MVC application is ready-made one or user-defined one? Ready. That name is what? Dispatcher servlet. Farhan Patel, now you are okay now? Yeah, with respect to numbering, guys, check it out. Number one, browser generates a request having s1.do in the request URL. Number two, dispatcher servlet traps and takes the request and applies common system services, here front controller. Okay, na boss? Number three, front controller uses navigation management logic and delegates to whom? Controller class, controller handler class, whatever it is. Number four, handler class either process the request. Come on, guys. Handler class either process the request or delegates the request to service. I'm assuming delegating only. Using business logic, it will generate the results. having inputs and output to persist forever, it will pass the data to DAO, and DAO will talk to database and complete the persistence operation. That is number 6, 7. Number 8, gather the results from database. Super. Passes the results to service class. Service class passes to controller. That is number 10. Controller passes to dispatcher servlet. But already dispatcher servlet keeps the results in scope now, boss. Okay. Now dispatch number 12. Dispatcher servlet uses view management logic to decide what view component. The selected view component will execute presentation logic to format the results. Come on, guys. Number 13. Formatted results goes to dispatcher servlet. 14. 15. Sends formatted result to browser as a response. Sends formatted result to browser as a response. Convinced, boss? Super. Yeah, tell me, guys. Front controller should take only one request or all requests? Or multiple requests. Okay, my servlet URL pattern is /abc. Can I give all requests to that servlet? We can give only one request whose URL contains ABC at the end. Yes, na, boss? But how can you make one servlet taking any URL based request? Either slash or star.do kind of. Star.do means what? Any URL based request, but at the end, .do should be there. At the end, what should be there? .do should be there. Convinced, guys? Yeah, tell me here what is there. Since front controller servlet component should trap and take either all or multiple requests. So we need to configure front controller servlet component either having extension match URL pattern star. Star means multiple, right? Why multiple here? Whoever gives request URL having .do at the end. Directory match /x/y star. At the end, any key can be there. Before that, X and Y should be there. Or slash. Nothing. Traps every request, every response. And what is the best one, guys? Convinced, boss? With respect to each MVC architecture web application, how many front controller we can take, guys? One. How many handler classes? One per module. Array, don't see the number, worst fellow. One per module. Service classes, DAO classes, one per DB table or one per related 3-4 DB table. Less than 100 table, one per DB table. More than 100 DB table, one for 3-4 related DB table. One per 3-4 related DB tables. Understood my statement, guys? Got it, my dear? Got the clarity, my dear? I want reply. Handler or controller class handle the request by taking request from front controller. If service DAO class are not taken, then handler class itself process the request. Otherwise, it will delegate the request to service comma DAO classes for request processing. I hope you convinced it. No service, no DAO, handler itself process the request. Front controller is servlet component. Handler controller class is Java class. Front controller contains what? Navigation management, view management, data management, system service logic. Whereas controller handler class contains what? Business logic or Delegation logic to service or DAO classes. Front controller is one per web application, whereas controller class is what? One per mod. If someone asks what is the difference between front controller and controller, are you able to answer few things, guys? Number one, handler class is normal Java class. Front controller is servlet. Number two, front controller contains supervising logic, navigation management, data management, view management. Okay, handler class, either business logic or delegation logic to service DAO. Understanding my statement? Front controller is one per web application. Controller class are one per module. One per module. Front controller is servlet component. Handler class is what? Controller class is what? Normal Java class. Maybe max to max in Spring Bean it is. Okay, guys. What is the famous architecture to develop Java web application? What's the answer, guys? MVC plus front controller architecture. MVC plus front controller application can be developed in two ways. A, using JWE technologies like Servlet JSP, using Java frameworks like Spring, Spring Boot, MVC, Struts, JSF, and etc. Now I officially launched it now, boss. See, model 1, model 2. Model 2 perfect, nothing but MVC, right? But only MVC not sufficient. Front controller is required. For a few minutes, we discussed about front controller. Come on, my dear. So now to develop this MVC plus front controller architecture application, how many architectures are there to follow? Two are there. What are those guys? Ah, what are those guys? I want reply, boss. Madhu Verimalla? No, 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 no. We take single DAO having all 3-4 tables related card operations, only to reduce the number of this one. No, irrespective of whether they are in relationship or not, they're in relationship. Yeah, tell me, guys. Limitations of MVC plus front controller architecture when it is implemented with the support of 1 minute, guys. Servlet JSP and what? Java framework. Which is good, guys? Framework. Frameworks means with Servlet JSP based MVC architecture implementation, some problems are there, na? Shall we start understanding? Limitations of MVC plus front controller architecture when it is implemented with the support of what? Servlet JSP technologies directly without using frameworks. Without using frameworks. Is it not interesting, Rai Babu? Are you understanding my statement, guys? See, again, back to JDBC, Spring ORM, or Spring JDBC. Why JDBC outdated, we learned, right? So now we are learning what? When we can develop MVC architecture web application using what? Servlet JSP technologies, why we are not using it? Definitely there will be some pain or not. Shall we start understanding, boss? All logics of all layers must be developed manually. This is extra burden to the programmer or not? And if it is Spring or Spring MVC, front controller is ready-made. In Servlet JSP environment, front controller is ready-made. That means all layers of all logic should be developed manually or not. And front controller dealing with what? System services, navigation management, data management, view management. Is a small logic a big logic? Developing those logics on our own is complex or not? That improves the burden or not? We need to understand and implement entire front controller DP manually, which is quite a complex process to perform. I am a Spring MVC developer. I don't know front controller. Any problem? Because it is a ready-made one. Dispatch as early, it is a ready-made one, right? but I'm a servlet JSP developer, but I want to follow MVC architecture to develop the project. I must study front controller manually or not, guys? Okay, guys. Now listen. There are some rules in MVC architecture, guys. Those rules will be remembered and implemented by the programmer manually. All rules of MVC architecture should be remembered and implemented manually. The rules are: every layer is designed to develop specific logic. So place only those logic and don't place any additional logic. Someone says, sir, I know how to write JDBC code in JSP. I will write JDBC code in JSP. Is it going to work out, guys? JSPC here what? View component. View component should have what? Presentation. JDBC code is presentation. So every layer is given to have specific logic. Place only those logic. Okay. Though it is possible, don't keep any additional logics. Next one. There can be multiple view components, multiple model component, but there should be only one front controller component. Array, so many presentation logics are there, so many view component, so many business logic, so many controller classes. Okay, but the supervisor should be only one, boss. Yes or no, na? There can be multiple students, multiple admins, multiple lab coordinator, but while conducting the class, there should be only one faculty, na, boss. Is it going to work out? In one course, one topic by faculty, one another topic by faculty too. Is it really going to work out, guys? I say one line, my colleague will say another line. Supervisor should be only one thing, na? Come on, I want reply. There can be multiple view component, multiple model component, but there should be only front controller. All operations and flow of execution must take place through front controller servlet. So we must remember and follow these MVC rules or not, boss. I hope you convinced with me, my dear. Got the clarity, my dear. I want reply, my dear. Come on. Okay, now listen carefully. Whenever we develop web application in Java, Servlet JSP or MVC or Spring Boot MVC, are we going to run directly from the command prompt? Are we going to run directly from Eclipse IDE by saying run as Java application? After development, we try to deploy in web server or not? Tomcat kind of server or not? Why are you not deploying standalone application? Why are you deploying web application? Anyone guess it? Standalone application is specific to how many users? One user. At a time, how many people will use? Okay, is there any need of automated execution? User one needs execution. He comes, manually starts, manually enjoys, manually stops. Over na? But website we develop for one user or lakhs of users? From one location user or any location user? For certain time or any time? For certain time or any time? Any time. So, in that situation, if I say, I will execute my web components manually, is it really going to work out, guys? If I say, I'll execute my web components manually, is it really going to work out, guys? I want reply, my dear. Is it really going to work out, guys? I want reply, my dear. Really not going to work out. We need a special software which automates web application and its web component execution. Should be in a position to take requests from any time, any location. Should pass the request to what? Appropriate web component of web application. Should execute the web components dynamically. Should gather the results from web components dynamically. and should pass those results to browser back na boss. Should pass those results back to web application or browser, back to client, nothing but browser, right? What is the software who take care of all these things in automated environment? Web server software or not, guys? So web server is a piece of software that listens to client request continuously, takes the request, maps the request with what? Appropriate web component, executes the web components dynamically, gathers the result, and sends the results to client as responses. Am I going to do anything manually? Except developing web application having web component, are we going to do any execution manually for web application? Everything is taken care by web server. I'll explain. So, but in standalone application, why this automation is not there? Standalone application is specific to how many users? Manual is okay, na? But web application websites are specific to one user or lots of users. Manual execution is going to work out, ah? That too few requests may come simultaneously. When 10 requests came simultaneously, if you tell to 10th user, wait for some time, I am busy executing what? First user request, second user request, is it going to work out, guys? So that there should be one software which automates the whole process. Who is that? Web server. Example, Tomcat. Example, Jetty. Example, okay, we have other advanced servers are there, WebLogic, what is that? Glassfish, Wildfly, and number of names are there. Are you getting my point there, guys? Arcade, Jenkins is on the top of this. Jenkins comes into pictures. Jenkins is next level automation, guys. Jenkins is what? Next level automation. First of all, you have to keep web application accessible for 24/7, right? Array, to automate deployment process, Jenkins. To automate execution process, web server. Come on. See, while working with web server, we deploy one manually, right? But only execution process is automated. Agree with me? Now you want to automate that deployment process also. Then Jenkins comes into picture. Arcade, I think you got my question. I hope you got my point. Deployment automation, Jenkins. Execution automation, web server. Why all these things? I'll do one real life example, boss. Your mother is preparing daily 6 rotis in the evening. 3 family members, 3 into 2, 6 rotis. How many rotis? 6. Manually she prepares now, boss. Why? After all, 6 rotis. That too, eating people are what? Family members, right? Okay. But you people decided to run a hostel. Daily 400, 500 rotis are required. Tell me, your mother or your worker is going to prepare manually, yeah? They will definitely try to purchase roti maker device or not. They definitely try to purchase roti maker device or not, guys. That means automation is required or not required? Same thing here. For standalone application, how many people will execute? One. Automation is required? No. Web application is specific to one person or lots of people? It needs manual execution or simultaneous execution? Simultaneous. Not manual execution, right, boss? It needs automation or not? And that automation is possible through web server. Here I have clearly explained need of web server. The standalone application is specific to one computer and will be operated by one user at a time. So the application will be started manually and will be stopped manually. The web application, nothing but website, gets what? 24/7 request, guys. What, guys? 24/7 request. Are you understanding my statement, guys? Yeah, tell me. The web application, nothing but website, gets what? 24/7 requests from the clients of different location. So we cannot think about executing web components of web application manually. For that, we need to use what, guys? For that, we need to use what? Special piece of software that automates every activity of web application and its web components execution. What is the example, guys? Tomcat, Jetty, Jonas, Undertow, and etc. Right? Application server is equal to web server plus plus. WebLogic, WebSphere, Wildfly, Glassfish. Here is my web server. Here is my application server. Up to Tomcat 6 web server. Up to Tomcat 7 application server. Web server is a piece of software that automates web application and its web component execution. It listens to client requests continuously, takes the request, maps the request. Map means links, guys. Write web component of web application, executes the web components dynamically, gathers the result, and sends the results to browser as responses. Sends the results to browser as responses. Sends the results to browser as responses. I hope you got it, my dear. I want reply, my dear. Come on. Sends the results to browser as responses. I think so far, everything is clear now, boss. Why we are not using Servlet JSP? Why we are looking for a framework-based what? Application. Okay, framework-based web application development for MVC architecture-based application. I hope you got crystal clear clarity. Convinced with me, my dear, everyone. Super. While developing MVC architecture-based front controller-based web application, we need to take care of multiple logics in multiple layers manually. Come on. By following MVC rules, especially development of front controller servlet component manually is what? What is that? Complex process. While developing MVC application, okay, using servlet JSP technologies. What, guys? So using servlet JSP technology. Simply using servlet JSP technologies. We need to take care of multiple logics manually or not, guys. Especially developing front controller is what? Very difficult process. To overcome problems of servlet JSP based web application development, take the support of MVC framework to develop MVC plus front controller based Java web application. Struts Apache, JSF, Sun Microsystem or Oracle Corporation. Spring MVC, Interface 21. Spring Boot MVC, Interface 21. Tapestry, Adobe. ADF, Oracle Corporation. All these are what? Frameworks that are there in Java and other domain, which are developed based on front controller plus MVC architecture, which is purely given based on what? Front controller plus MVC architecture. Is it not interesting, Babu? Come on. I hope you convinced it with me, boss. Now we must understand why we should go for these frameworks. What is there in these frameworks compared to what? Servlet JSP based web application development. Number one, advantages of developing MVC web application using Java MVC frameworks. These frameworks give ready-made front controller servlet taking care of multiple logics. Agree with me, guys? Instance, what is ready-made servlet? Action servlet. JSF, faces servlet. MVC, dispatcher servlet. Spring Boot MVC, dispatcher servlet. We are ready-made now. Big button is reduced now, boss. Provides abstraction on servlet JSP technologies and simplifies what? MVC architecture based web application. Are a front control ready-made and also simplifies working with what? Servlet JSP. Next, flow of execution is fixed according to the logics placed in front controller. So developer need not to worry about what? Flow of execution. Are front controller is ready-made means navigation management is ready-made. Already flow is decided. By understanding that flow, you have to keep your components in the flow. Keeping our component in the flow is easier. Deciding flow is easier. Keeping our component in already decided flow is easier or not? Come on, my dear. See, already in the ground, water is there. Installing bore and taking water out is easy, right? There is no guarantee where water is there. That time it is very difficult now, boss, to dig the bore and to get the water, right? Front controller is ready-made in MVC. That means already logics are there. And keeping supporting programs according to these logics is quite easy process or not? The predefined front controller contains logics already satisfying MVC rules and guidelines. So programmer need not to remember and implement those rules manually. Array, front controller is ready-made. It is having all the logic. That means already rules also remembered and implemented now, boss. Come on, my dear. Super. Gives good productivity in application development. More work in less time with good accuracy. Why, sir? We are having ready-made now, boss. We are having ready-made. Whatever problems I said with the servlet JSP, all are solved. Their front control development is complex. Here we don't develop. Their rules remembered and should be implemented. Here need not to remember. Honest. There I have to take care of flow of execution. Here flow of execution is fixed. Life is easy, boss. With this, we completed Spring MVC introduction. I officially introduced it's a framework given by Java to develop the web application. Better than Servlet JSP. You read once, keep your Servlet fundamentals there. Definitely you'll enjoy this discussion. Okay, tomorrow onwards, we spend special time only to understand dispatcher servlet. Because it is a ready-made servlet taking care of many things. We should understand by spending some time or not, guys. Once we got grip on the dispatcher servlet, what we do? We go for MVC application flow. Then application development. One by one, we will see. So can I upload this material, guys? Don't miss the classes until I say 3 applications are completed. Before that, if you miss one class, it is equal to missing all the classes. Until I say 3 applications are completed, don't dare to miss the classes. So tell me, Spring MVC is easy or boring? Interesting. You will get goosebumps when I present Spring MVC in a proper way. You enjoyed Spring Data JPA? Nothing is there. If that is also complex, pack your luggage and go to hometown. Because are you writing any logics in Spring Data JPA? Still, if you feel complex, God bless you. Very interesting. Okay. First one? Okay. What's the folder I should create now? Spring Boot MVs. Yes. Right click, guys. File upload, guys. Come on. Right click, guys. File upload. Where is this? 901. Here is my 901. Spring Boot MVC, guys. I have not saved anything there. File save as. Oh, it is not saved in correct place, guys. Yeah, done. Go to this place. Where is this, guys? 901. Boot MVC. This one, na? Paste. Yeah. Thank you, guys.